Ain't a damn thing pretty unless you since 1969 the same city.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Talking Friars podcast and YouTube show, episode 268. I'm sorry for that delay there at the start. I'm on my iPhone right now because my computer's not charged. My charger stopped working. So bear with me here. I don't know if the audio is going to be good. I don't even know. I can't see how many people are in here. I can't see if there's any comments yet. So just bear with me here. But I did want to get this out. I was planning, obviously, to do it today on my laptop, but it's not charged, so I can't. But there's a lot to talk about today. I mean, Jurickson, Profar, Brandon Drury. Okay, the audio is good. Thank you. Jurickson, Profar, Brandon Drury. There's some stuff to talk about there. Keith Law. He came out with his top free agents in the Athletic article going into the offseason. So I'm going to give my thoughts on that. He gave some dollar figures, and I kind of disagree with that. There's also the player reviews to continue. Will Myers, Jose Azocar, those are the player reviews for today. Looking back at Will Myers' tenure with the Padres, I wanted to do that a little bit. Sorry, I'm in my garage, so maybe the dryer's going right now and you can hear that. I don't have headphones in for this. Again, I'm just trying to do it as best as I can here. But yeah, let's start with Profar and Drury. So Keith Law said today in The Athletic, he was ranking free agents, and he had Jurickson Profar as his 11th best free agent. And he said, quote, he's a 3 to 4 year, $15 to $18 million a year guy. If you believe he can extract some improvements in just one of those areas, especially defense. And I believe one of those areas, what he was talking about there was defense, power numbers. I think that's what he was referring to. And so if Keith Law thinks that Profar can improve defensively, he can get $15 to $18 million a year. I don't see that. That would be doubling Jurickson Profar's salary. What he would get, or what he got this year, was like $7 million. So what team out there, really, like what team is going to give Jurickson Profar $15 million a year? That's doubling his salary. I just don't see that happening. For a guy, well, Keith Law said that Profar had a well below average defensive year. I don't know if I agree with that. With all the assists that he had, it looked to me like he was an improved guy out there. Even if he did had a below average, I mean, the offense, it's not like the offense was better. So I do want to give Profar credit there. But if he did have a below average defensive year and you're not going to get a ton of power from him, and that was clearly his best offensive year so far, or just his best year all around, what is he worth? You're just going to double his salary because of that? I don't think there's going to be that many teams out there that are going to think, oh, Profar is going to continue having a great year like this in 2023. And we can pay this guy double his 2022 salary for the next 3 years. I just don't see that. Like next year when Fernando comes back, Profar is going to be like maybe their 7th hitter, you would think. Tatis, Soto, Manny, first base, DH, Cronenworth, and then do you go Profar, Grisham, Nola? You know, like that's where he's going to be. So you're going to pay a 7-hitter $15 million a year? I just don't see that. If that's what Profar is going to get from some team, well, then Profar is just going to be gone. He's going to be out the window. All right, that's fine. He can be gone because I just don't see the Padres wanting to pay him $15 million a year. That's that for a guy that's not an all-star player. I just don't see that. And then with Brandon Drury, he was ranked by Keith Law as the 49th best free agent out of 50. And that was, Keith Law said, quote, because of his versatility, he might be worth a 2-year deal at a modest, base salary of $5 to $6 million a year. I don't see that either. I think Drury's going to get paid more than $6 million a year. According to Fangraphs, that value metric that they have, he was worth $23+ million this year. I know you're probably not going to predict him to have that season again next year, but to only think he's going to get $6 million a year, and it's because of his versatility, I just don't see that. I'm thinking it's going to be like 1 year, $10 million for the Padres, something around there, like them being willing to give him, and that's double that. So if you can get Drury for 2 years, $12 million, $6 million a year for that, for the versatility, and even if he is a utility guy, I mean, Profar was supposed to be a utility guy going into last offseason, and he was paid $7 million. That's more than Drury, based on this. Now, Keith Law, he's not like God, right? He doesn't determine the salaries, but if he thinks that Drury's getting $5 to $6 million, I mean, the Padres would pounce on that, I would think. I'm thinking it's more going to be around $10 million per year for Drury. And so maybe it's two for $20 million. Josh Bell was like $14 million, according to Keith Law. I don't know if the Padres want to go that high for Josh Bell. Even though, he is the switch hitter, that's something Drury can't do. I don't know. But, I mean, for Profar, okay, sorry, it was a good run with you. Goodbye. If it's going to be $15 million a year. And then with Drury, I feel like that's an underpay. Like, I would jump all over that if I was the Padres. If it's $5 to $6 million a year, that's like nothing. Especially, he was probably the best Padre they got back at the trade deadline. I mean, Soto was good, especially at the end, but Josh Bell didn't do much. I think Voit and Hosmer actually did better offensively than Josh Bell did coming back in that trade, like the remainder of the year. So, yeah, I mean, those are my thoughts on Profar and Drury. You can let me know in the comments here on YouTube or on social media if you would bring back Brandon Drury. I think you would on $5 to $6 million a year. But would you rather bring him back or would you rather bring Josh Bell back? And Jurickson Profar, what is your limit? I'm curious. What is your guys' limit, do you think? How much would you give him per year? Like, is it $7 million? Is it $8 million? Is it $10 million? And then you say, no, all right, that's it. Anything over that, sorry, we're not going to bring Profar back. Like, what's the limit, AAV, average annual value, that you would give to Profar if you were Peter Seidler, if you were AJ Preller in the Padres front office? I'm curious to know. But yeah, that was just the free agent stuff that came across I saw this morning. So I wanted to talk about that. Free agency does not start till 5 days after the World Series. I think at 6 a.m. that day, because they have to get those player option decisions, the player option window 5 days after the World Series ends. Between those next 5 days after the World Series ends, teams, players, they have to do the player options, the club options until real free agency starts. So there's not going to be that stuff like until after the World Series ends. That's when we'll get into the player options, Nick Martinez, Robert Suarez, Jurickson Profar. But for today, that was just an article that came across and piqued my interest. I was like, okay, well, Keith Law, he's respected, and I think he's overpaying Profar and he's underpaying Drury. So I'm going to be interested to see what their markets are actually like. Moving to the player reviews. I've been doing the player reviews since the Padres were eliminated. I think it's just a good thing to reflect on this season, especially when there's no baseball being played for the Padres. And, I mean, like, we're just sitting here waiting for free agency to start. So might as well talk about players' years, and it was a good season. I've already done the pitching, the bullpen. I've done the catching position. I went through Nola, Campy, and Alfaro. I think that was yesterday. And today I'm going to go with Will Myers and Jose Azocar. That's the two that I'm going to talk about. Azocar, there's not as much to talk about. Will Myers, maybe there's not a ton to talk about in terms of his 2022 season. But, I mean, reflecting on his Padres tenure, there's a lot to talk about there. So let's start with the 2022 seasons for Myers and Azocar, and then I'll get to some reflecting on Myers' Padres career, assuming that it's over. I mean, I don't want to assume that Myers' career is over. He could come back. on a 1-year deal. And if it's a lower salary, obviously, than what he was being paid, and he's okay with that because he wants to be on a contender, okay, I'd look into bringing him back. But if he wants to be a starter, I think his time in San Diego is probably done. But getting to 2022 here, Myers did. He had a 1 Fangraphs WAR, 261 average, 315 on base percentage, a 398 slugging, 108 OPS plus, so that was above league average, 29 runs scored, 41 RBIs, 7 home runs. Those were his year numbers. Obviously, the disappointing part for Myers this year was the injuries. Right, he dealt with the thumb contusion in late May. Then he had the right knee inflammation that started in June, and he missed about 2 months with that. He returned in August, and that's where the positive starts. For me, I think, in that season. I mean, yeah, the power numbers weren't there. But that was a lot because of the missed time that he had. When he did come back in August, he looked like he was happy to play baseball, and he was really embracing possibly his last moments with the Padres in his career. At first base, I mean, he was playing tremendously at first base. And then, sorry, my dryer's going on in the background. Just tremendous at first. I thought he was having a lot of fun. It looked like he was having a lot of fun. He was just playing freer, I thought, than what he played in, like, the outfield. And offensively, he hit 309 in his last 18 games of the regular season. So he earned that starting spot in the postseason, I thought. Now, it was unfortunate that come postseason time, he didn't do a whole lot offensively. I thought he was still pretty solid defensively, but offensively, he went 3 for 29, I think it was. He just didn't provide anything offensively. But he was there defensively, so I was kind of fine with that. But as the later rounds progressed, like, it wasn't a short series anymore. Over a long series, you do need some offense from the middle of the lineup. And so that's when you started seeing Myers not play as much. Or at least you had maybe Drury go play first, and you had Bell DH and Myers come in later. That was expected because Myers, again, he just wasn't providing much offensively. But for his last year in San Diego, yeah, the numbers aren't like super flashy and all that. But I think it was a successful year for him, considering the circumstances. Obviously, it wasn't a successful year probably in total. Like, numbers-wise, they just weren't there. But considering the injuries, what he was able to do when he came back, I think that's a real positive. And if this was his last year with the Padres, it was a great end, I thought. I mean, this guy went through the ups and all the downs with the Padres. He's the only one left, right? 2015, he comes in. They give him that extension for $83 million or whatever it was, the biggest contract in Padre history, which obviously that looks like nothing now based on $340 million they give him to Fernando, and given the $300 million they gave to Manny. But that was the biggest at the time. He didn't want to be a leader. Like, he didn't want to be like the face of the franchise, right? I understand that. That's some people's personalities. They're just not. They don't want to be the face, and that's okay. But he was always someone who got it. If you know what I'm saying, like, with the fans, he got it. He was always signing autographs. He took time for the fans, even during rehab assignments like this year in Lake Elsinore. He signed for every fan that wanted one. He took his time with the fans, right? And obviously in the postseason, running around the field, running around outside by the players' parking garage, high-fiving fans, and going bar hopping and buying beers for Padre fans in those bars. I mean, he's someone that got it, and he really, really enjoyed this season because he had to go into it, this postseason run. He had to go into it thinking that, okay, this is going to be my last year with the Padres, and he definitely soaked it all in, that's for sure. And when I think back at Will Myers' Padres tenure, I'm probably going to say, all right, well, I mean, did he live up to the contract? No. Like, even if you look at the FanGraphs numbers, the value numbers, like when he's earning $20 million a year, he's worth like $12 million a year. There was 1 year where he lived up to it, right? 2016, he had a 3.4 WAR. He was worth over $20 million a year. He exceeded that contract, the year-to-year salary, right? But there were other years where he just didn't live up to it. 2015 had a 1 WAR. 16, we already mentioned that, 3.4 WAR, hit the All-Star game, the Home Run Derby. He was the guy for the Padres. But then 2017, a 1.3 WAR. Again, this was before Hosmer came, right? He was still like the guy. 2018, a 1.6 WAR. 2019, 0.07. This is all F WAR, by the way, FanGraphs. 2020, he actually had a good year, but it was 2 months. So you kind of have to take that into account. That was a 2 WAR. 2021, 2 WAR, full season again. 2022, this year, a 1 WAR. Yeah, he did not live up to the contract, but I think he lived up to his contract more than, Eric Hosmer did. Hosmer got $144 million, and the guy had, what did he have, like a 0 WAR? Or maybe it was even a negative FanGraphs WAR. I think over his 5 years with the Padres, his baseball reference WAR was like 3. People get that. People double that. People double. All-Stars, they double that in 1 season. Like, that's probably the worst contract in Padres history. I'm not going to go that far with Myers. And he's someone that embraced the fans, took time with fans. He's someone that got it. And so, yeah, there's some people on social media in my mentions that are like, well, why do we praise Will Myers' Padres career, but then dump on Hosmer's when they both underperformed? They underperformed, but there's a big difference there. Someone wanted to be here. Someone was here because of the money and did not care about the fan base. I think that's part of the reason why, But yeah, when I reflect on Myers' Padres tenure, yeah, there were injuries. There was a lot of strikeouts, underperformance. There was a lot of Sunday day games where he struck out 3 times in a game and all that. But to end it like this in 2020, where he was playing good defense, he was at first base. It looked like he was happy again to play baseball. And he looked, this was the happiest that he ever was with the Padres, right? That's a great way, I think, to end his Padres career if this is the way he goes out. It was a heck of a way to go out. Go to the NLCS. And it's not like he was riding the bench the whole time. He was starting at the end there. So I'm proud of how he did embrace Padre fans and how he ended his Padres tenure, right? He didn't, reject a trade to the Nationals and then not thank Padres fans and then block all of the Padre fans on Twitter like Hosmer did, right? No, he didn't do that. Him and his wife, Maggie, they embraced Padres fans. They loved being with this city. Maybe he comes back, but if he doesn't, I wanted to take some time to look back and appreciate Will. He's one of my favorite Padres ever, that's for sure. And I know it's like, well, why is he one of your favorite Padres ever? Like, he underperformed. Okay, but he's someone that was here for 8 years, 7, whatever it was. There's not a lot of Padres recently that you can say that about, Sure, Manny and Tatis, they'll be here forever. Crony's going to probably live out his contract here. Hopefully he gets an extension. But the guys that he was with at the beginning of that contract, Carlos Asuaje, Manuel Margot, Hunter Renfroe, Alexi Ramirez, Ryan Schimpf, Corey Spangenberg, like he was through all of that. And those guys were not here for a long time, right? So you couldn't really latch on to one of those guys. Where with Will, like it felt like he represented Padres fans through, because he was through some ups, but not many. He was through a lot of downs. He was through all of the low seasons for the Padres, the 70-win seasons, like we were. He was there, right? He always talked to the media. he was always accountable, especially like this year. It felt like he was accountable. And I don't know what else to add. I'm proud of the way that he represented the fan base. I want to say that. And I'm proud of the way it possibly ended. So that's what I'll say about Will. And moving on to Jose Azocar's 2022 season, he was the starting center fielder at one point, then he wasn't, and he didn't get much playing time at all in the postseason because Trent Grisham turned into Mr. October. And he wasn't going to get a lot of playing time anyway because if you look at it, like the Padres wanted that power potential in center field. Trent Grisham, Gold Glove this year. Congrats to him again. I gave my reaction to that on YouTube if you want to go check that out. With the Azocar, I mean, I think you have to label it a success based on where he started the season because he was in the minors. We never heard of the guy really, right? And he made it to the big leagues, and he worked his butt off. He worked on his plate discipline. And he did provide an impact for the Padres this season. He had a .5 Fangraphs WAR, 257 average, 298 on base percentage, 332 slugging percentage, 85. Excuse me, sorry, the dryer again. 85 OPS plus, 10 runs driven in, no homers, but that's like expecting Noah to hit home runs, right? He's just not a power bat. I look at the positives from Azocar this year. He hit 371 for a couple weeks, September 2nd through the 23rd, 3 weeks, hit 371. He showed speed, right? That showed up. He wasn't terrible in the outfield. I think he made like 4 errors. That's the positives, right? And if he's the backup center fielder next year, I don't think that's the end of the world. I think Grisham's going to be the starting center fielder on opening day next year. I just think that they're going to try it out again for a full season. And they saw what he did in the postseason. They're like, okay, well, let's try to get this to happen in the regular season. And let's hope that Grish can do this for a full season. So I think Grish will start. If Azocar is the backup center fielder, he's on the bench. That's not the worst case, right? You have speed on the bench there. You have someone that can go play left or right field late in games if you want a better defensive option over Soto or whoever's in left field come opening day. Negatives, I mean, there were negatives, though, like the power, but again, you can't expect him to have power. I knew that he wasn't going to start games in the postseason, because I've already mentioned, the power potential with Grisham, just he's the better overall player, even with him struggling offensively, because Azocar is probably going to struggle offensively, right? But I wasn't expecting him after he took over the starting center field role. They gave him that chance. The last couple weeks of the season didn't do that great. He hit 0.87 over his last 9 games in the regular season. There just wasn't a lot there. I guess I was expecting more to end the season from Azocar, especially when he had that chance. He did have that chance. They put Grisham on the bench and they gave Azocar those starts. And it just didn't feel like he did a whole lot with those. So that was disappointing. But I wasn't expecting him to, be this amazing center fielder all of a sudden when he got the starting role. I guess I was just expecting more than what he gave the Padres then, But again, it's not the end of the world for him to be, well, not the 4th outfielder. You probably want some power there, but to be like the 5th outfielder, if they do have 5, be the backup center fielder, I'm fine with that for next year. And with Grish, I mean, I like Grish being the starting center fielder over Azocar, definitely, for 2023. And some people might be, they might not want Grisham anymore. They might be tired of him. They saw how he played in the NLCS or how he hit in the NLCS. They saw how he hit in the regular season, and it was a bigger sample size in the postseason. But the Padres, I mean, they have him under kind of club control for, I want to say, another 3 more years, or at least another 2 more. So I don't think they're going to give up on him. It's not like he sucked the whole postseason. Like, they saw glimpses of what Grisham can be. They just want to see it now for the majority of the 2023 season. And they got to fill the left field hole. They got to fill first and DH and starting pitching, back of that rotation, and the bullpen. So they have higher priorities right now to fill positions than to go replace Trent Grisham and have him either put him in a trade or have him be the 4th outfielder. Like, I think they're fine with giving him the chance to be the starting center fielder again, or continue to be the starting center fielder in 2023. They believe in him. And again, so Azocar, having him be an outfielder on the bench, that's not the end of the world next year with Grisham being the center fielder. I hope that they go find, if Profar doesn't come back, they go find some power in left field, or just someone who has the potential to have power. Maybe that's David Peralta. Michael Conforto's available. There's some other names out there that I'll dive into, obviously, as this offseason, gets into full swing after the World Series. But that's kind of what we're looking at next year. I mean, it's Soto and right. It's Grisham in center. Azocar on the bench. Profar maybe in left. If he doesn't come back, then someone until Tatis comes back, and then you probably put Tatis in the outfield and right field, and you have Soto move to left. I mean, you have power with Tatis, right? So you want some power there in the outfield, more power. Then you could put Tatis in the outfield. You have still Kim at shortstop, Manny at third, Crony at second, and then you get some power at first base, or whether that's bringing back Drury or bringing in Bell again, or you have, Rizzo is probably going to be available, or you go get like a lower name guy via trade, like maybe Rowdy Tellez. I think he has a couple more years on a contract. That's what it's probably going to look like next year. But they could have Crony play first and have Kim play second and Tatis play short. But then they better go get a good left fielder. Like there's a lot of different possible scenarios. I know this was supposed to be season reviews about Myers and Azocar, but as fans, obviously, I'm just focused on what we're going to be doing in this offseason, and it's impossible to just focus on this past season and not look forward to what's to come and this season, because the Padres are good. They're contenders. It's NLCS or bust probably next year. And we just want this team to improve and keep getting better. And there's just a lot of positions to fill, and there's so many things that AJ Preller could do this offseason. And so I'm very excited for what's to come this offseason. Getting to the chat here, before I get to that, this episode brought to you by Gaglione Bros, famous cheesesteaks and garlic fries. GaglioneBros.com is the website. Their main location is on Friars Road, and it's available inside Petco Park and inside Snapdragon Stadium. I definitely recommend you check those guys out. Great cheesesteaks, cheesesteak fries, garlic fries, cheese fries, regular fries. A lot of good stuff there. All right, let's get to the chat here. Sal, I think that's his name. Sorry, I'm on my phone here, so it's kind of small in this chat, but I'm trying to make it work. Sal says, do we need Profar? No, I don't think we need Profar. Sure, he's good for the clubhouse. He was a solid, I thought he was a solid left fielder this year. He improved defensively. He was good with his arm, great with his arm. But we don't need Profar. If he's going to get $15 million a year like Keith Law thinks that he could get, then no, we're not bringing him back. I don't think you pay $15 million a year for Profar. That's doubling his salary from 2022. We're not doing that. So no, you don't need him, especially when you could put Tatis in the outfield. Like, I'm not opposed to that. I think having Soto in left, having Grisham in center, having Tatis in right field, I think that's an intriguing outfield. And that allows you to still have Kim at shortstop. He's your best shortstop on the roster. It allows you to have Cronenworth, your best second baseman on the roster, to play second base. And you can go bring in a first baseman with some power. And he can DH a little bit. Like, you have Alfaro or Campy that can DH a little bit as well. I don't think that's the end of the world. If you don't even bring in a left fielder, you're probably going to bring in an outfielder for bench if you don't bring in a starter. But no, no, I think the Padres, if they're going to bring back Profar, it's probably going to be with the player option, him coming back with that, because the player option is what, like 8 million or something, 8.3 million, I think. I saw that somewhere. That's probably what they want to give him. I mean, do they want to give him $10 million a year in free agency? I don't know. Maybe. I'm pretty sure they don't want to give him 15 million a year. That's for sure. So no, we don't need Profar. They can get the job done without Profar. As great as he was this year for the Padres, you are getting Tatis back, and you gotta. I'd rather spend that money, that extra money from Profar, on like Nick Martinez, making sure he comes back as a starter, or Robert Suarez maybe, or definitely like the first base DH position, than in left field for Profar. Yeah, my mom's right. Yeah, she says here you went to the All-Star game Will played in. Yeah. The home run derby wasn't that much of a success. But no, 2016, that was like the year where it was like, wow, Will, he's showing up. But then after that, just didn't really live up to the contract. Jason says Trent Grisham's projected 2023 salary is $2.6 million. Modest salary by Major League Baseball standards. Padres have nothing to lose and a lot to gain if Trent can improve to his old form, or get back to his old form, I think is what Jason's saying here. Yeah. Yeah, if that's right, 2.6 million, yeah, that's nothing for a Gold Glove center fielder and a guy with the power potential. Like, if he can just be a little more consistent at the plate, consistently good at the plate next year, I mean, they will take that. If Grisham's the 8 hitter, that's not the end of the world. Grisham 8, Nola 9, like the postseason, that is not the end of the world. If Grisham and Nola can make consistent contact, I mean, that's not the worst thing. So I agree. Yeah, modest salary by MLB standards. Yeah. Is there anything else to touch on? I don't think there's anything else to touch on. Went through the Profar stuff. Drury. And Profar was ranked as the 11th best free agent. Drury is the 49th, according to Keith Law, assuming that Profar declines the player option and stuff. Drury, I think he's probably going to get somewhere between 8 to 10 million a year, maybe a little more than that if someone overpays. But 8 to 10 million, Keith Law thinks 5 to 6 million a year. If I were the Padres, I would jump on that. He says Profar 15 to 18 million a year guy. That's not going to happen, I don't think, from any team, to be honest. I think a team would give him maybe like 12 million, 2 years, 3 years. But I don't think that team should be the Padres if it's that. I mean, I think they want him for the player. They're fine with the player option because they put it in the contract when they agreed to it. But to do much beyond that, I don't think that's very smart, to be honest. Then we reflected on Myers' tenure, his 2022 season, Azocar's 2022 season. I'll be back tomorrow with more player reviews and any Padres news or anything that comes out that I want to talk about. Thank you so much for tuning in here, episode 268, Talking Friars podcast and YouTube show. Hopefully I get my computer charger to work or get a new one, and I'll be back on my laptop tomorrow. But thank you for bearing with me. Enjoy Game 4 tonight of the World Series. Phillies are up 2-1 in that. That's at 5 o'clock. And then I'll be back tomorrow. See you, everybody.